Welcome to How She Does It. This is a show where we have real conversations with real women who are just like you. My name is Marva Smith and I'm your host. And today I have with me a guest, Elizabeth Grace Saunders, who is the founder and CEO of Real Life E, a time coaching company. And Elizabeth, I know because we've worked together, you've coached me through some time management issues, and I have just really been able to benefit from all your wisdom. So I'm really excited to be able to share some of that with our listeners today. And I just wanted to give you a chance to introduce yourself and tell the listeners, who's Elizabeth Grace Saunders and what are you all about?
Yeah, well, a lot of different things. I am a time management coach. I am an author. So, I've written three books. The first two are um, more business books, and the third is on a spiritual, faith-based approach to work. I am a swimmer. I am getting licensed to be a foster parent. And most of all, I'm a daughter of God. So I'm definitely a Christian, and that's a very important part of my life. And I think in the midst of just life in general, but also everything that went on in the midst of 2020, I really think faith is so important that you just have that sense that everything doesn't depend on you. You can take things one day at a time. And I actually have this little plaque I bought this year that's on my desk that helps me. It says, live by faith one day at a time. So even as we're talking about planning and goals and all of that for 2021, I want to encourage you not to overwhelm yourself with too much um, concern about the future, because there are some things that are difficult that may or may not happen, and freaking ourselves out in advance isn't helpful. So
Yes,
I may be speaking from personal experience. There may be a few times I freaked myself out in advance this year about things that did not happen.
yes, I know. And you're really talking to me right now as well, because we're recording this as we close out 2020, and we know that it has been quite the year. And I
Yes,
love what you started out saying about, one day at a time, because really we can jump ahead of ourselves and
right.
feel completely overwhelmed. So I just, appreciate us being able to start off with that and just to offer that encouragement straight out the gate. So 2020, Elizabeth, it was a year.
Yes, it was
And
a
I
year.
know you were very busy.
Yes.
Have people been feeling stressed out and overwhelmed with all the things they've had going on?
Absolutely. So just as a little context, I have been a time management coach almost 12 years. So I started in 2009, so the beginning of 2021 will be 12 years that I've been doing this. I'm very grateful that I've been able to be a full-time coach for quite a few years, and just so grateful for that. But yes, people have been very stressed out this year. I was concerned that people would see what I did as a luxury product and be like, oh, the economy is going down and I'm losing my job and bye, like, not going to work with you. But that is not at all what I found. I found that people just recognized the level of stress and pressure they were under all over the world was just more than they could really handle on their own. And one of the things that's been really interesting is over the course of 12 years, I have had quite a few international clients, but I would say in the last few years, it had definitely swung much more domestic. Like occasionally I'd have a coaching client from Canada or a, a few different places, but in general, it was primarily the United States. And what I've seen in 2020 is that all over the world, people are stressed out and wanting help. I This year I've had clients in, of course, the United States and Canada, but also Mexico, England, Switzerland, Denmark, Ghana, a couple clients in Australia, and just other parts of the world. And so I would say yes, people have definitely been stressed out. It's been a lot, and it's been so ubiquitous. It isn't just like one person or one part of the country. It's really been the whole world has been under a lot more pressure than we ever have been before.
Yeah, so I don't feel all alone then.
No, it's not just you.
It's not just me. So can you share with us some of the tips that you have been sharing with your clients? Can you give us the insights
Yeah,
for those who
absolutely.
are overwhelmed and stressed out?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be so happy to share. So in terms of where I've seen like the biggest like uptick of why people are so much more stressed this year than they might normally be. So one is everyone working from home. That's been really difficult. So a lot of people didn't work at home before this, and for them it's a massive change to have to motivate themselves entirely independently. Another big reason is remote learning with children's schools. So that has been exceptionally difficult on parents, particularly parents that also need to work from home. So that has been a huge uptick. And then I would say the third thing has just been more like the mental health issues of all the uncertainty and change and not having access to the things that might calm you down. So maybe it's seeing your family or your friends or being able to play sports or do other things you enjoy has really taken a toll on people overall. So in terms of tips to go along with those things, with the first one with working from home, I really think creating a structure is essential. Absolutely key in this time. If you were someone that could maybe get away with not having much of a structure because you went in to the office and it kind of pushed you in the right direction and you could go with the flow and so basically get things done, that just does not cut it right now working from home. So you really need to figure out, when am I going to bed? When am I getting up? When am I starting work? What am I doing during work hours? What am I not doing during work hours? So, like for example, maybe not doing laundry or not doing personal errands during work hours. You need to figure out when you want to end so that you can have some real time off at night. All of those are really, really key because the distractions are so much higher, the temptations are so much higher, and quite honestly, the motivation is lower. It's the same with like when you work out or play a sport with someone else versus on your own. Like, I'm a swimmer, and if I'm on my own, sure, I'll swim, but like you don't swim that hard. But then it's like your ego comes in when you have a whole bunch of your teammates around you, or even just one other person that's like right by you. We're like, I want to keep up with them. I'm not going to quit. I'm going to do this. So that kind of effect was happening in the work environment in terms of like, oh, we're all working, getting things done. And so I really encourage you to have a structure. In regards to remote learning with children, there's a huge range. So some of the people I'm talking to, their kids are fully back in school 5 days a week and have been this whole school year, no problem. Other people, their kids are entirely remote. And then we have some people that are in between and some things that are varying over time. So massive variations around the world, around the country, or even here in the United States between school districts. So you could have two different school districts side by side. One, the kids are in person, one, they're all remote. So with that, in terms of tips, once again, I think structure is really essential, like knowing when your kids are supposed to be doing school and when they're not. If your children are younger and you're working full time, I know it's not always possible, but if you can get help, I highly recommend it, like a nanny or some sort of shared teacher situation that has been really helpful for some people that I work with. Um, and then again, it's where you can setting boundaries. It's so hard when the kids are really little and maybe not possible, like if they're 5 or 6 years old. But if we're looking at a middle schooler or a high schooler, you can do things like set things up for them in advance so that they basically know what they need to do throughout the day and have certain designated times when you check in with them or they check in with you about if they have questions or they need help with something or that sort of thing. So that's been really helpful. And then the third tip from just a really a mental health point of view, because I feel like mental health, I don't feel like I know mental health has been a huge issue for people, just like anxiety and depression has skyrocketed and lots of other things in relation to that. It's so important you figure out what you can integrate into your life that calms you down. So whether that's going on a walk, whether that's taking time to pray or meditate, or spend time with people you care about, or as you can, like play sports or go to the gym or go to church or do those things that help calm you is so important because um, when you're in fight or flight mode and you're feeling anxious, you're really cutting off your brain's ability to process on a high level. And so you want to make sure you calm down your nervous system so that then you can make better decisions, you can prioritize better, you can be focused, all those good things. And so it's really important that you are taking that time to calm yourself down to be able to be effective in all of life.
Yeah, I love those tips. So many tips there that we can really put into practice right away. And I know when you and I first spoke, a couple months ago, I was in that situation where my kids were at home, doing school at home. My husband and I are working from home right in the midst of the pandemic, and just so many things going on. And you're right, just having that time where you can get out of the house if you can, and go for a walk, or be able to just have a devotion in, the quiet of the morning before the kids are up, and just really finding those times and those things that work for you. I found those to be really, really helpful. And you also helped me to be able to put that structure in place in terms of my schedule. So I've been working from home for a while before the pandemic. And, but now that everybody else was at home, it
Yeah.
really changed the
Yes.
dynamic of everything. And I had to get so much more intentional about my time, how I was going to spend it, and making sure I had time for my family as well. But I know, Elizabeth, that some people don't love structure. When they hear the word structure, or, like a plan, or, even anything like that, how do you then respond to those who are averse to having a structure in place?
Yeah. So what's interesting is the people that tend to least like structure are the people that need it most. So I've been doing this for a long time, and most of my coaching clients are people that are not naturally routine oriented. They're naturally very spontaneous. The problem with that is they don't have any internal sense of orbit. Like they don't have any internal sense of like, oh, I'm leaving the house. So that means like 15 or 20 minutes before I need to start getting ready to leave. Or like they don't have a sense of like, oh, I need to get up at 7 o'clock or 6 in the morning. So that means I need to get to bed by 11 or midnight, which means I need to start winding down around 10:30. It's just all of a sudden it's 1 or 2 a.m. and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be so tired tomorrow. Like it like doesn't cross their mind. So first of all, if you don't like structure, you probably need the most because you don't have those internal regulators. Secondly, I would say if you can even think of one area of your life where either now or in the past you've had structure and it's helped you, think about that. Because a lot of my coaching clients, even the ones that say like, oh, I don't like structure, when they have had structure, whether it's an exercise class or it's a certain morning routine or it's a certain way they approach their work, they've always done better and they've really thrived. So I would say think of those times and then use that as encouragement to integrate in more structure. And then finally, what I would say is not everything has to be structured. So with my spontaneous clients, we usually are focusing on work and them getting like their work done and being very routine oriented there and having a sense of it. And so you can devote your time towards that kind of structure and choose to be more spontaneous, like outside of work in the evenings or the weekends or whenever you have off. So I think it doesn't have to be all or nothing. It's not like my whole life is structured or I have no structure at all, but it's about applying the right structure in the places where you need it to be effective.
Right. Okay. I can understand that then. I think that will go over well for those who don't like the structure. It brings us to this discussion about work-life balance.
Mhm.
Because especially for women, who are trying to balance, work and family and church and, personal time and all the other things, it can feel as if it's a lot to manage all at once. So do you have any tips on how to balance all these things?
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, you can't do everything. So you do need to decide what's most important to you. And you do need to decide what will fit. And work-life balance looks a little differently for each person. So for some people, they may be able to work 50 hours a week or even a little more and feel okay, like as long as they have everything in order. For some people to feel like they have work-life balance, it might only be 20 or 30 hours a week that they can work. And then the rest of the time they're devoting to different areas. So first of all, there's definitely not a one size fits all. You need to figure out what works for you. if you are tending towards working the higher number of hours, not all the time, but usually what I see is that you're able to get help in some regard. So either you have a spouse that will be able to help more with things around the house or with your kids, or you have a nanny or house cleaner or just other people that are supporting you so that when you're not working, you're able to be present with your family or take care of yourself or do those sorts of things. I know that's not always possible for everyone, so I don't want to make it sound like that is, but I would say that that's where I see in general, people able to work more hours, but then also to be able to have that time to rest and to spend time with people they care about. If for some reason you aren't able to have those people in your life for whatever reason, then with your work-life balance, I would just get really clear on how many hours you feel you can work and also do the things you want to do. And then you want to streamline things as much as possible. So have a morning routine, have it set so you know maybe you're going to exercise during that time. So you know every day you're going to have a chance to exercise before the kids get up or before they go to school or start school. I encourage you to have a streamlined routine around grocery ordering, around making meals, around things like chores around the house that either you're doing or other people in your household are doing. You want all of those systematized so you're not wondering when do we get groceries or when does the bathroom get cleaned or when am I going to exercise? You just know and you just go through the system. And then I would also say to really give yourself permission to simplify some things. So maybe it looks like with cooking that you find some ways to have simpler meals that still work with your family, that take less time, maybe some parts of the meal pre-made or all of it pre-made, or they're just fast and easy. Or with the holidays that we just had, by the time you listen to this, they will be over. It's okay to do things like order presents online. It's okay to pay a little extra for the gift wrapping. Like little things like that can make a big difference. And I think a lot of where I see people get stressed out, or particularly women, is that they think, oh, well, I should be able to work 50 hours a week and make homemade Christmas cookies for everything and like hand make gifts and wrap them all and do this and volunteer at that. And it's just like, no, like you just need to decide which areas you're going to spend more time, you're going to invest in, and which ones you're going to be like, you know what, I'm just going to buy some store-bought cookies this year, or I'm just going to, get this present that's quick and easy that will work instead of doing something by hand. It's not that those aren't lovely ideas and you might not be able to do them sometimes, but you cannot do all those things and also get sleep. So, yeah.
Yeah, we need some sleep.
But sometimes people, and I'm sure there's some people listening to this, they'll stay up till 2 or 3 in the morning and get, 3-4 hours of sleep because they are doing the homemade cookies or they're doing the handmade gifts or whatever. And again, it's not that you can never do that, but that's just not a lifestyle that's sustainable. And if you only get 3 or 4 hours of sleep and you're a cranky person, really your family, your friends would have rather had you buy cookies. Like really, like they'd rather have happy you and store-bought cookies than cranky you with perfection.
Yes, that's such a great point. What I've heard you say here, though, Elizabeth, is really about putting some systems in place. The decisions that you can make early on, if you know when the chores are going to be done, or if you know the gifts or whatever it is, that you've decided those things in advance. So it's not that you have to take the mental, space to in the moment figure out how you're going to do everything.
Right.
It's having a plan before the things are needed.
Right.
And the other thing that I picked up too was about expectations, because sometimes we have this expectation of ourselves that, okay, I can do this, I have to make sure things are done in a certain way, but to be able to let go of that sometimes in order to have that peace of mind.
Right. Right. Exactly. That it's really okay. Like no one else is holding you to that expectation and you can let it go.
Oh, wow. I love that. I'm going to take that one to heart. So I know, now by the time everyone listens to this, it's going to be the new year. And some people would have set their goals or maybe New Year resolutions. But we know that by the end of January or February, those things fall by the wayside. How do we keep up with these things, with the goals and the resolutions? Is it even possible?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of it is that we need to go through a translation process. So in my first book, The 3 Secrets to Effective Time Investment, I talk about clarifying action-based priorities. So what that means is that we want to take things that are priorities, or in this case with the new year, goals, and translate them into actions you can actually do. So for example, maybe someone said they want to get into shape, like that's one of their New Year's resolutions. Well, that's lovely, but that is not actually a very clear action that you can do. Instead, a clear action might sound like, I'm going to go on a walk 3 times a week for 30 minutes at lunch. And that would just be a very clear action that you can get done and that you can put into your schedule. And that's a way to not forget about it and not have it fall off your radar, because if it's in your calendar 3 times a week for 30 minutes, you're going to see it and you have a greater likelihood to get it done. The same with like things for your business. Like, so maybe if you have a business or job that involves growth or reaching out to people, you might say something like, oh, I want to grow my business as a resolution, which is fine. But again, that's not very actionable. So an actual action step might sound like, I reach out to 5 new people a week on Tuesday mornings at 10 to network and to find ways to get in front of different and new people. So it's a very specific action and something you can put on your calendar. And so I really think that that's one of the keys to success there. And then also you might want to consider accountability. So it could be as simple as just writing it down and being accountable to yourself. It could be that you get an accountability buddy, a friend or colleague that would help hold you accountable. Or of course you can work with a coach. So someone that helps you in putting things into practice. But I think for a lot of people, it's really about making it granular and getting it into your calendar that makes the difference.
Yeah, it's good to have a big picture goal, but you have to figure out how you're going to actually implement it. What steps
Exactly.
are you going to take?
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. So I have a feeling, Elizabeth, that you've picked up a lot of wisdom along the way. You said you've been doing this for 12 years, the time coaching, but you haven't always had the benefit of this wisdom. So I
Mhm.
have a question that I like to ask all my guests, which
For
is
sure.
basically, what would you tell your younger self?
Mhm.
Elizabeth,
Yeah.
say maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago,
Mhm.
what advice would you give her that you know now that you didn't know then?
Yeah. So one of the things that I learned and is really what led to time management coaching is the importance of work-life balance. So when I started my first business, which was in 2005, I did writing, editing, and photo styling for about 50 different magazines. And I was really happy to do work I loved that was interesting and fun, but I had no work-life balance. I was working at night, I was working on the weekends, like it was exceptionally unclear when I was working and not working. Like I just didn't feel like I could take time off without guilt. And after a few years of that, I was like, I don't care if people think I'm successful. If I'm stressed out all the time and I can never relax without guilt, I mean, it could be like 10 o'clock on a Wednesday night and I'm feeling like I should answer a business email. Like, this is not success for me. And so I really worked on figuring out how to not work at night, not work on the weekends, um, how to get myself in a place where I planned in such a way and set boundaries in such a way and really structured my life in such a way that I was able to be balanced. And I was able to do that and very successfully so, and really enjoyed that. My entrepreneur friends are actually the ones that encouraged me to start this business, helping other people to do the same. So I think my advice to myself back then would actually be to not be limited by other people's conceptions of how things need to be. Because when I started my business and I was around other entrepreneurs, the controlling narrative was, well, if you're an entrepreneur, you just need to be stressed out all the time. You just have to work really hard. You just have to hustle. This is just how it is. You just put in your dues. And I kind of believed that for the first few years. And then at a certain point, I was like, I don't care what you say. I don't want to. I just don't want to. I'm not going to. I'm going to figure this out. And that really got me to start to forge a new path. And this was like, even before like the 4-hour work week came out or any of that, like it was a really different thing for entrepreneurs to say, I don't want to be stressed out all the time. And so I think the advice I would give to my younger self is just question whatever anyone says. It doesn't matter if they're older than you or supposedly successful. If it doesn't work for you, it doesn't. And that's the same advice I would give to everyone right now. Like, who cares about other people's limited beliefs about their lives or about what's possible for you? Like, ignore them. Like, ignore them. Why should you have to suffer because they suffered? Like, you figure out what you want for your life and you find out a way to make it happen. And I think like, especially in 2020, I think in 2021, I think that's so important because a lot of people's suffering is created by jails in their own mind. And so you can sit in that jail with them, or you can be like, oh, no, I'm opening the door and I've got the keys. Thank you very much. And walk right out and have a great life. So I would say that's the advice I would give my younger self. And that's the advice I give everyone right now. Do not listen to people that say that it's not possible. You figure out a way to make it happen, and you probably can.
Wow. Yeah. It's like, get out of the jail already.
Yeah. Or people that are like, oh, this is a terrible year, or this or that. It's like, I haven't had a terrible year. I've done a lot of great things. I'm having a happy life. Like, how about you join the party instead of being grumpy? Like, like, so yeah, so it's just so much of it is the jail of people's own minds more than the actual reality of what's going on.
It really is a mindset shift. I can see that. Yeah. So for the woman who has tried to do all the things and, even implement some of your tips and, really feeling overwhelmed and stressed out and perhaps a little bit discouraged that
Yeah.
she hasn't lived up to her own expectations or maybe the expectations of someone else, what advice and encouragement can you give to her?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, this has been a tough year. So particularly like if you're working full time and either you're a single parent or you are married to someone who's also working full time and you have kids doing remote school, particularly if they're younger children, you've been put in an almost impossible situation. So like especially if like you don't have help from a nanny or some other support along the way. So that's one thing I want to just preface it with. Like when I just said the thing about like the jail of your own mind or all that, that's actually terrible. Like it really is. And I don't mean to be like mean in saying it, but it really is. Like it's like asking you to work an 80-hour work week in some cases between having to monitor your kids like as a full-time teacher's assistant and then having to do your own work. So I'm not invalidating your life experience. And if you were in that situation and got put in it, I am so sorry. And I hope you get out of it really fast. I know that there are schools that are open at least for hybrid or some open full time. And hopefully that will be your situation very soon. So if you were in that case, pretty much got put in an impossible situation, congrats on making it through the year. If you're still alive and kicking, all your kids are alive, you and your husband or wife are good, like that's a massive accomplishment in and of itself. So cheers to you. So that's what I'll start out with. Don't be too hard on yourself. Secondly, what I would say is that what I've seen, because I've worked with a lot of people in these situations throughout this year, and of course just talk to people, is it sounds so boring, but you've got to refocus and you've got to get a clear sense of your schedule and structure. And it could be some small tweak as small as saying, every day I go on a walk for 30 minutes. I mean, it could be that small where it's just like, I need 30 minutes to get out of the house, clear my mind, or talk on the phone with a friend or my mom or whoever you like to talk to. that in of itself can be just a sanity saver for people and a chance to really get refocused. It could be setting more boundaries with your kids. Like if you have kids at home and you're doing remote schooling, and it could even be setting boundaries with teachers. Like I know parents who are in the situation of trying to do remote learning with like 5-year-olds and then also working full time, where they just had a conversation with the teacher and they just said, my child cannot show up for all of these video calls because like they calculated and they would be only getting 2 or 3 hours of sleep a night if they did all of the remote learning plus the work they had to do. And the teacher was great. And she's like, you know what? Your kids are smart. They're fine. Just show up when you can and have them do the assignments as they can. And she was really understanding. So number one, don't be too hard on yourself. Number two, be aware of what you can or can't do. Number three, get that structure in place. So that, like I said, maybe it's the 30 minutes of walking, maybe it's boundaries with your kids. Maybe it looks just like, I know this isn't possible with everyone, but if you have the ability to have your office space in just a place a little bit different than everyone else versus like on the kitchen table, just giving yourself a little space. Maybe it looks like saying, I don't stay up past midnight. Whatever is done by midnight doesn't matter. I'm going to bed and I'll deal with it the next morning. So I just really encourage you to figure out what you need to be healthy, start to put that in place. It may not be amazing. It may be like a B. It may be a C plus, but you know what? A B or a C plus is better than enough. And so just figure out like what are the basics you need to stay sane and to move forward. And then as you have the opportunity, like your kids can go back to school or you can go back to the office or you can do more of the things you enjoy, take those. Like I have found people's mental health just dramatically improve when some of the small things they can do to move forward. So don't be too hard on yourself. This is a hard time, but do take ownership of the things you can choose, set those boundaries, take care of yourself, and you're going to make it through in a better way.
Wow. Yeah, I love that encouragement, Elizabeth. Thank you so much. I
You're
mean,
welcome.
you've shared so many great practical tips. I'm like, going to be taking notes after I listen to this because, we really do need that help moving forward in terms of what can we do. And as you've said, take control of the things that we can,
Right.
not the things that we can't. Just really focus and figure out which ones we can really manage at this time and extend a lot of grace,
Yeah,
So,
exactly. This is a challenging time. Extend grace and take care of yourself, like getting sleep, getting a little exercise, laughing a little bit with your friends, like all of those literally are sanity savers and totally worth the time. Totally worth the time.
good. So why don't you tell us how everyone can get in touch with you if they want to follow up this conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be happy to. So my website is reallifee.com. So that's RealLifee, as in Elizabeth.com. And I'm a time management coach. I have a group coaching program called Time Management Made Easy in addition to one-on-one coaching. And then I've written 3 books. So if you look them up on Amazon or wherever books are sold, Elizabeth Grace Saunders, you'll find those available to you.
Yay. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. I have a feeling people will be knocking on your door.
I hope so. I plan to have a great start to 2021.
Yes, thank you again. And really, we'll be in touch and just really grateful for these tips. So we'll be in touch.
Sounds good. Take care. Bye.